Hey dudes, and welcome back to the Bantz. As always, I am your host, the Bantz, and here we are once again on a Tuesday. I hope you all enjoyed your weekends, but now of course it is time for our first What's Happening in Fashion for the week, so let's just get right into it. And first up, as per usual, we have our headlines for the day. And in our first headline of the day, let's just quickly go over Diamond Supply Co's 20th anniversary collection, where they did a collaboration with the late great artist Jean-Michel Basquiat. So in our last video, when I was covering anniversary collections, specifically the Softnet 20th anniversary collection, I also named a couple other anniversary collections as well, such as the Stone Island Shadow Project 10th anniversary collection, which we had already covered on this channel, the Bape 25th anniversary collection, which we had also already covered on this channel, and this Diamond Supply Co 20th anniversary collection, which I hadn't covered yet. Looks like I jumped the gun a little bit, so sorry about that. But now with all that out of the way, looking at this collaboration here, I think that Diamond Supply actually did a fairly decent job with it. Although I do have to say that when it comes to artists that have done collaborations with fashion, I don't think there's ever been one, and there will ever be one, that has done more collaborations than Basquiat. I mean, just thinking about it, I couldn't even possibly begin to name all the brands that have done collaborations with Basquiat at least once. And then there are brands like Uniqlo that seem to do a collaboration with Basquiat every fucking season. And personally here, I think that once again, Diamond Supply Co did a fairly decent job here of showing off some paintings, and I mean just some, that I haven't personally seen made into graphics or put on clothing before. And it's really a good thing that they did a good job with this, because that's all really this collection is. It's really just a bunch of Basquiat graphics. Aside from literally just one diamond labeled piece, it's really just Basquiat all the way. But this once again leads me to another question. First off, is it a good collaboration? Yeah, I'd call it one. But is it a good 20th anniversary collection? No. Diamond Supply has 20 years of designs and graphics and art to go off of. I mean, yes, sure, 90-95% of it is complete and utter garbage. This is Diamond Supply we're talking about. But even so, there is that 5 or even just 1% that could have been made into this 20th anniversary collection and made it something actually special instead of just being another Basquiat collaboration. But with all that said, if you are a fan of Basquiat or even just looking for some new streetwear, it's still definitely worth checking out. Then in our second headline of the day, sorry guys, I tried to hold it off as long as I possibly could, but unfortunately here we are. Let's talk about the Supreme Fall Winter 2018 collection. So what is there to really say here? I mean, this is Supreme. First and foremost, going into the collection, you know it's already probably not going to be that good, because, I mean, Supreme, outside of the box logo and usually 1 or 2 pieces a season, is pretty much always just crap. And although their seasons tend to run the gambit between somewhat crap to just awful crap, this season here tends to shoot more toward the latter. Starting off with the outerwear, usually there is 1, maybe 2 different pieces that are standouts, that are usually the best part of the collection. None of that this time around. Then there's the knit pieces in this collection, and there are actually a few solid pieces in here, but for every good piece, there's 2 to 3 just trash pieces. Not really surprising, but still. Their hats are just pretty meh this time around, although honestly their hats have been pretty lackluster for years. And once again, the accessories are the most interesting part of this collection. Not because they themselves are interesting or creative, but more so just because it's always fun to see what stupid bullshit and utter pieces of junk people will just throw their money at because Supreme slapped their logo on it. And you know what? I think after this collection here, I'm done. I'm finally done. I think we've come to a point where it's really just not worth talking about anymore. I think talking about Supreme nowadays is almost as boring as the collections they're putting out. Like, don't get me wrong, it definitely was fun for a long time to just talk shit on them and make fun of them for some of just the stupid shit they put out. But as the seasons have continued to churn on, it's slowly just gotten more boring because it's literally just more of the same. Sure, there's different color palettes and different materials, different graphics, and different all-over prints, but it's still the same shit. I mean, you can change up that shit all you want, as many times as you want, however many ways as you possibly can. But when it comes down to it, that silhouette is still the same. The amount of creativity put into it, which is none, is still the same, and it's just fucking boring. It's just so fucking boring nowadays. And the funniest thing about it is it seems like others are starting to agree with me. For those of you who've been around a while and have watched some of my palettes reviews, you know that one of the pros that I have about the company is that even weeks and sometimes months after their launches, you're still able to pick out some of the product, because even for as popular as palettes is, they don't sell out instantaneously like Supreme product does, or used to. But now I can go into Supreme right now, many weeks after this launch, and still pick up a bulk of their product. It's just not moving. But unlike the product that's still available on Palace's website, which for the most part is still fairly interesting, it's still worth picking up in my opinion, a lot of the bulk that is on the Supreme site is just sitting because, once again, it's just fucking boring. So with all that said, I think this is it. Unless Supreme does something really fucking stupid, really fucking crazy, or God forbid, really fucking good, this will probably be the last time I ever talk about Supreme. Thank God. Okay, and now with our headlines done, let's move on to our art stories for the day. And first up, brand RVCA just recently wrapped up their Now and Then exhibit, basically highlighting the artists that helped push the DIY culture movement, such as Shepard Fairey, Barry McGee, and the Gons, just to name a few. So if you want to see some of their works or check out some of the images from this gallery, I would definitely look into this. Then Visvim showed off their newest dissertation, basically going over craftspeople who make traditional Korean items from the Joseon dynasty, which happened from the early 1300s all the way up to the early 1900s. Basically art and pottery among other things. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that history, I definitely give this a read. And lastly, artist Javier Calleja showed off his newest works from his exhibit, which just recently wrapped up. I know it's a little bit more light and cartoony than what I normally show on here, but still fairly interesting and creative overall, so if you want to see a couple more of his works or photos from the exhibit, I definitely check out this as well. Alright, and now moving back into our fashion section for the day. First up, brand Rowing Blazers showed off their Fall/Winter 2018 lookbook, and I'd say it looks pretty cool. So going through this collection, we can easily see that there's a ton of colors, a ton of patterns, a whole bunch of maximalism, all mixed together in this very kind of 90s prep revival that we've been seeing nowadays. Looks like someone's trying to give Polo Ralph Lauren a run for their money. But all jokes aside, I think Rowing Blazers put a lookbook together that is actually pretty good here. I mean, as I said before, there's a ton of just vibrant and bright colors here without going too crazy that they hurt the eyes or overly maximalized. Some of the silhouetting is very nice as well. However, and this is a big however, the quality on some of these pieces looks a little suspect, I have to say. And that's really saying something, because if you can just tell through photos that the quality looks bad, then the quality's probably pretty fucking bad. So if you've been looking for some really colorful pieces or some of that 90s revival or some prep or even an amalgamation of all of that, I would definitely check this out. But once again, fair warning, it might not be the best quality piece you've ever owned. Always remember, just because something looks good doesn't always mean it is good. Then Neighborhood showed off their Fall/Winter 2018 lookbook, and all I can say is that it was pretty interesting. So when I bring up Neighborhood to you, obviously I'm talking about the Japanese brand. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it a pair of really distressed denim, maybe a cool biker's jacket, or maybe just some dude dressed to the nines in this really nice motorcycle fit? Probably something along those lines, right? Well, the reason why I bring that up is because looking over this lookbook, you really don't actually get a lot of that. And that's actually not a good thing, in my opinion. Now, I know I've talked in the past about how certain brands have kind of just stay in their same style, their same motifs, and just do the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, hell, I just talked about that with Supreme in this video alone. But I also think that that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you are creative enough to keep up with that same aesthetic, that same style, but are able to shake it up enough to do something totally different with it while maintaining that vibe. And when it comes to a lot of those Japanese brands, such as Neighborhood here, Bounty Hunter, Dub Taps, and so on, I think they do a pretty good job of being able to do that. And although I by no means think it's a bad thing for a company such as Neighborhood here to try and evolve their style or their brand, that's just not what this is. What we have here is a mixture of a couple different things. First of which being that tried and true Neighborhood style, which comes off very well here, so we're not going to talk too much about it. Then we have a bunch of silhouettes and pieces that kind of have a stylistic feel of something you'd see somebody wearing around the turn of the last century, the early 1900s. We also see this small little line of outfits that I can only really describe as Montclair puffy jackets meets bondage wear. And lastly, we see just a bunch of one-off pieces that I just really can't make heads or tails of. Like, let me give you a few examples. First off, here we have these all-over print shorts, which I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. They really just don't complement or go with any other part of this collection whatsoever. Then we have just a whole mess of outerwear, which doesn't feel cohesive either. There's all these just one-off designs that just differ so much from one another and from that original Neighborhood style that I don't see why they're in this collection at all. And then there's this use of lettering, this use of text on a lot of these pieces, especially those one-off pieces, that just feels so shoddy, so just lazily tacked on that I don't even understand why it's there in the first place. It just feels like Shinsuke added this text to so many of these pieces as a way to appeal to the lowest common denominator of streetwear heads nowadays, who just love to add just quotes and too deep for you messages to the bulk of their pieces in an attempt to be some kind of undercover ripoff, which, if it obviously doesn't work for them, why are you trying it? And even more so than that, why are you trying it in such a terrible way? I really just don't understand what is going on with this collection. Yes, there are some of those tried and true Neighborhood pieces that I just love, that I just adore. And the pieces that are like that in this collection, although few, are very, very well done. But then we have the rest of this collection, and although some of it is alright in my opinion, and definitely can work its way into the Neighborhood fan base, the majority of it is just so trash, and it's just so disappointing to see Shinsuke even attempt some of it. Like, why? But with that said, let me know what you guys think about this collection. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do the pros outweigh the cons? Or do you actually like some of this stuff that I obviously don't? Whatever your thoughts, let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. And finally, now with our fashion done, let's move on to our articles for the day. And first up, Grail did a very nice breakdown of what they consider to be some of Japanese brand Atmos' greatest collaborations, plus kind of a history of the brand as well. If you are by any means a fan of the history of streetwear, and even more so the history of sneakers, definitely read this. Then Quartzy put out a nice little article talking about this new Adidas marketing strategy, where they're basically taking some of their more popular silhouettes, such as the Stan Smith and the Superstar, and basically lowering the supply runs or just stopping them altogether in an attempt to not only keep their popularity relevant, but to keep people wanting them for more future seasons and more time to come. It's a very interesting read, especially if you're more interested in the business of fashion or even maybe sneakers in general. So either way, I would definitely check this out. And lastly, the New York Times put out a very interesting article going over the history of renowned fashion photographer Bill Cunningham's earlier career as a hat maker. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about him, but not really his photography, more his fashion design influence, then I would definitely check this out as well, especially if you're a fan of fashion history. Alright, and with that, we reached the end of our first Whiff for the week. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, if you want to read any of the articles I talked about today or see any photos from lookbooks I wasn't able to include, I've linked everything in the description down below. And if you are new here, then welcome to the channel. We do these What's Happening in Fashion videos twice a week at the beginning and end of the week, plus another occasional video here or there. So if you're a fan and want to see more, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, if you just have any questions, comments, concerns, or even just want to talk fashion in general, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I am always willing to talk fashion. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching these videos and supporting my content. I hope you all have a great week until I see you next. And as always, until next time.